This is Trademark East Africa, growing prosperity through trade. Now let's talk trade.
Trademark East Africa is supporting governments in the East Africa community states of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, as well as South Sudan to make trading standards the same across the region. The idea here is to enhance trade competitiveness. However, bottlenecks still exist in some countries in the EAC, forming barriers to business. In this show, we find out, why does standardization matter and what does it mean to the exporter? My guest today is an expert on standards and has worked closely with governments, civil society organizations, and businesses across the region to iron out barriers to trade. She's based in Nairobi and works for Trademark East Africa as a senior programs manager. Can you explain to us what standards are in terms of trade competitiveness across the East Africa community?
Standards anywhere in the world actually are guidelines that specify the characteristics of a product. And these characteristics can be the shape, the size, the design, or even the performance of a product. Some of them are mandatory and some of them are voluntary. They matter because when they are applied correctly, they actually facilitate regional trade or even international trade. On the contrast, when they are applied incorrectly, standards can actually be a barrier to trade because national standards bodies can use them to protect their local industries against competition in the region or internationally.
So if it's good for business, why has it taken so long for some governments to fall in line with the standards?
Standards are good for business and for consumers because when businesses are in line with standards, they are able to export in the region or even internationally. For consumers, standards are good because they are the basis for which safety is assured, and governments use the standards to ensure conformity. Now, you have to understand that the bureaus in the EAC have different capacities and they have very specific needs. So Trademark East Africa has been working with each of the national bureaus of standards to ensure that their needs are met and also to improve their capacities. So one of the things we've been doing at Trademark East Africa is to ensure that standards are harmonized across the region so that when a good adheres to one standards in the country of origin, it automatically conforms to the standards in the importing country.
So you say some of these areas have already been improved. For example, the conformity assessment procedures. Can you explain what these are?
Conformity assessment procedures are the steps that the national bureaus of standards use to ensure that a particular product, whether traded nationally or regionally, adheres to the laid out standards. So this comes at a cost to the businesses because it involves testing, sometimes audit, and even sometimes the travel costs. So what Trademark East Africa has been doing is to ensure that the standards are harmonized across the region so that when a product is adhering to one standard at home, it automatically adheres to the standard of the importing country.
Okay, how does this help smoothen trade?
It helps in the sense that when a product is certified at home and issued with the notified certification marks, then the time to test for conformity in the importing country automatically reduces, and this means that the turnaround time is faster for businesses.
Okay. How will this benefit participating countries in terms of accessing information?
Okay, once the participating countries are using the harmonized standard, it means that the information you need to export a product is available right at home, so the information costs reduce dramatically.
Okay, let's look at the case of Tanzania, where we know that it's a prerequisite for goods to meet certain standards for them to be able to be exported to other countries. However, for years, the harmonization amongst national bodies has been problematic. How can this issue be resolved?
It is true that before you export to Tanzania, you need to register your products with the Tanzania Food and Drug Administration, which actually uses the national bureau, that is the Tanzania Bureau of Standards. So it is very important for both bodies, both regulatory bodies, the Food and Drug Administration, as well as the Bureau of Standards, to communicate more and to work more closely together to reduce confusion among people or businesses that are exporting to Tanzania.
Trademark has been supporting organizations across the region, training exporters in terms of meeting regulations and the policies and the guidelines for export. Could you please just tell us what impact this has had on growing prosperity across East Africa, especially amongst the small businesses?
One of the things we've been doing is ensuring that exporters are aware of the standard that they need to meet in the export destination. For instance, in Kenya, we've been working the Fresh Produce Exporter Association to ensure that their suppliers are certified against a global good agricultural practices standard. This ensures that they meet the maximum residue limits, for instance, that are stipulated in the export destinations, and so they're able to continually support the export market. This has the effect of ensuring that the farmers or suppliers' incomes are increasing and their welfare is improving in general. Again, in Rwanda, we've been working with small entrepreneurs to ensure that they're certified against the food safety measures that are known internationally. They have been able to supply to local and regional supermarkets, which again has a very positive impact on the small and medium enterprises in the country.
What other initiatives has Trademark East Africa been doing to grow business in East Africa?
Trademark East Africa has been working very closely with the East African Private Sector Standards Platform. It's a platform based at the East African Business Council in Arusha, and what it actually does is to involve the private sector in the standards formulation process. So they reach out to their members who are manufacturers to ensure that their voice is taken into consideration when the regulatory issues to do with standards are put in place. This participatory approach ensures that the regulation is formed in a way that it facilitates trade because the actual end users of the standards are involved from the beginning through implementation and to the end.
That was an edition of Let's Talk Trade. For more information on any of the topics being discussed on the show, visit our website www.trademarkea.com.